Hey y'all, here's a follow-up to my MintSIM review. Since that video, they've changed their name to MintMobile. And before I start, I just want to let everyone know this video is not sponsored in any way, shape, or form. Um, the short version of the video is that if you are an average cell phone user like me, and you probably are, and you live in a city, then Mint is right for you and you'll love it. Now, if you live or work inside a building that doesn't usually have service from T-Mobile, or if you live in the country, then you may want to listen on in this video for some minor hangups that you might have with the service. Now, I've had Mint Mobile now for nearly 2 years, and so now I can tell you even better than in my first video whether it's right for you or not. Now, just a little bit of backstory here. We got Mint Mobile in December of 2017, and at that time we were paying AT&T $95 a month for what was called a mobile share plan. They had 6 gigabytes of data shared between my wife and I, and unlimited talk and text. And of course, I thought that was too much money, and I also liked the idea that I could pay Mint once a year and not have to think about my bill again for the whole rest of the time. And just recently, my sister decided to switch from AT&T as well, and I helped her with that process. And I'm happy to report it was just as easy and seamless as I'd remembered it was. And she's also very happy with the MintSIM service, or Mint Mobile service, excuse me. And that was another reason I decided to make this video. Now, a little bit of backstory on Mint Mobile. They are an MVNO of T-Mobile. An MVNO is a company that pays to use one of the big four cell companies' towers. And in Mint's case, they use T-Mobile's towers. But they are not their users are not prioritized. So that means that if many users are on at one time, then the Mint customers will be deprioritized, or they may have slower data than a T-Mobile user. And it's the same way with Cricket having slower service than AT&T users. Or if they were to go over their data, then you would have slower data than a T-Mobile user would. With Mint Mobile, we originally got 10 gigabytes for me and 2 gigabytes for my wife, with unlimited talk and text, for a total of $40 per month. That was $40. That was $25, excuse me, for my plan, and $15 a month for her plan. They had a promotion when we first signed up where if you signed up for 3 months, you got 3 months for free. So after that ended, we just signed up for another year. In January of this year, Mint increased my data limit to 12 gigabytes and my wife's to 3. So that was just kind of a nice little perk that they just did out of nowhere, which is awesome. I mean, how many companies ever just start giving you more of whatever it was you had for free? Now, if you go over your data, it's just slowed down. That was a big complaint I had when I was with AT&T. Was, let's say it's the last day of your billing cycle and I'm getting close to the 6 gigs. Well, if I go over, even if it's the last day, I'm going to get a text message saying, hey, you went over your data, we're charging you an extra $15 and adding another gigabyte to your plan for the month. So that was always super annoying, because it would usually happen on the last day of the billing cycle, and I'd have to call and whine and see if they'd take the extra $15 charge off for me. Here in our house, which is kind of in the middle of the city that I live in, which is Baton Rouge, Louisiana, which, if you don't know, is a decently sized city. I think there might be 400,000 people living here, and it's one of the main cities in Louisiana. Um, but here in this house, I get 18.5 gigabytes down and 12.5 gigabytes up as far as my data speeds go. Um, and this is when I look at my phone, it shows that I have 3 of the 4 signal bars filled in. So if I were somewhere else where I had an even stronger signal, it might be a little bit faster than that. This is plenty fast enough for someone like me. Um, I don't usually stream video over the network. Um, Sometimes I do stream music or a podcast, um, but those load quickly, generally. Sometimes you can tell that it took a little while longer to load a song or a video than it would have on AT&T, um, especially if you're not in a prime area where that you have really, really good signal. Um, so that's not a big deal to me. And I have rarely ever had a song or a video buffer while it was playing. Uh, Now I do have an iPhone SE, so I just generally watch videos in 480p, but even if I watch them in 1080p, they never buffer while they're playing. Um, it's just, there's no point in watching something in 1080p on the tiny iPhone SE screen. News articles, Facebook, things like that, you probably won't notice any kind of lag. Sometimes when you're on Facebook and you're swiping real fast through photos, you might notice that they are taking a second, not a second, a whole second, but an instant to load rather than just being loaded as soon as you swipe. But that's a pretty minor complaint for me. If it's something that bothers you, you might want to take a look at it and see if it would really bother you if you had it. Now, I drive all around the city and the surrounding areas of the city for work. I do landscaping and mow yards. So I'm not ever inside really at work, but while I am driving around, I'm usually connected to LTE and sometimes 4G, but mostly LTE. I generally have good service everywhere around here. Uh, Sometimes I go south into St. Gabriel, if you're familiar with the area. It's kind of a country area out in the country south of here, and I still have service out there. I've, and sometimes I've been out to Denham Springs, Walker, uh, all those areas I generally have service in, though sometimes it will give me no service, especially if I'm in a building and I'm far out of town. I will get no service, or if I'm in a big concrete building or a thick, very dense building. Sometimes I'll get like bad service or no service, but no service has happened to me so rarely that I can't possibly consider it an issue. I've very rarely had calls fail or drop. Uh, it just hasn't happened to me too much. In fact, it did happen to me on AT&T as well from time to time. And in fact, when I was on AT&T, there were certain neighborhoods that I would drive through in the city where I just wouldn't have service. I just could not connect to the internet or make a phone call. Just, I have no idea why. Some of the oldest neighborhoods in the city, if you're familiar with the area, while I was in Kenilworth when I was on AT&T, I could never get online or make phone calls ever in Kenilworth. Strangest thing. But I think this is probably something that happens with every carrier, and it's probably just a small dead area between cell towers, and that shouldn't be something that makes you or breaks you as far as choosing a carrier goes. Now, as far as leaving this area, we drove to Daytona Beach, Florida from here, and we did lose coverage a few times, especially once we got off of I-10 and started driving south into Florida. The service would always come back pretty quickly. Sometimes I didn't even notice it because Google Maps downloads the map data to your phone. So I wasn't really like paying it exactly close attention to when I had no service. But what I did notice was that sometimes the music would go out. We were streaming music, and it went out from time to time, but never for more than a couple of minutes at a time. And that's not a big deal to me. The point is that the service always came back quickly, within a few minutes of driving, and so that's not a big deal to me. One complaint that my wife had when we first had Mint was that you always would have to readjust the APN settings every time you would update your phone's firmware. Now, that's not an issue anymore because, well, for iPhone users, it's not an issue anymore because ever since they introduced iOS 12, Mint's carrier settings are automatically input for you. So that's great. I mean, even for people who are reasonably tech savvy, it's just a hassle that you would have to put those in. And now that you don't anymore, that's great. Now, I'm not sure if Android users still have to input APN settings, but if you do, it's very easy to do. It takes a few seconds, and there's very easy to follow tutorials on Mint's website about how to do it. Or if you have an older iPhone that didn't get the iOS 12 update, then there's video tutorials showing how to input the APN settings for an iPhone as well. And the only thing that it affected is that picture messaging wouldn't work until we re-put the APN settings. We re-updated the APN settings. Her internet would work, but just not her picture messaging. And so once we updated them, it would come back, and now it's not even an issue anymore. Now, next question is, should you get Mint Mobile with 5G on the horizon? This is an interesting question, and with so much hype surrounding 5G lately, I thought I'd offer my own opinion on the situation. Most current phones don't support 5G. 5G will require a new phone with a new antenna that can receive a 5G signal. So, much like when you first got your first LTE phone, your old iPhone 3GS didn't get LTE. The iPhone 5 was the first one to support LTE. So that was a big upgrade point for a lot of people. And so, similarly, I think that a lot of people might be looking to update once 5G phones start coming out. But currently, a lot of phones have not come out that support it. I think there's a Galaxy S10 that supports it, and the new Note supports it, as well as a few others that have been released here, but not many. Furthermore, carriers, the Mints and the AT&Ts and the Verizon's, they're going to have to support 5G as well. So to do that, they're going to have to put out new towers. Their current towers, they just they don't support it, and they can't just magically make them start supporting it. So it's going to take a lot of time, a lot of money for 5G to start rolling out in America for most people. Now, it's already up in some cities, but it's not everywhere in those cities. It's only in certain places because 5G only reaches a short distance. So that means they're going to have to put up a lot of these 5G towers in order for everyone to get the service. If you're interested in 5G, Marquez Brownlee, another YouTuber, he put out a video where he drives somewhere where they have a 5G tower and he tries to use it with a 5G enabled phone, and it's pretty interesting to see the results of his test, and it kind of gives you a perspective on how much work it's going to take to get 5G working and really usable for most people. In closing, MintSIM will definitely be the carrier of choice for our family in the next year and probably 2021 as well, because 5G support will probably not be coming out fast enough for it to be very useful for people like us, not really power users of phones. And plus, when 5G comes out, I already talked about how much money and time it's going to take. You know you're going to have to pay more for it. So as far as value-minded people go, which I assume is at least somewhat on your radar since you're looking at a video about MintSIM, 5G may not be financially viable for quite some time. So that plus the financial ease of mind, knowing that your bill has been paid and it's paid for the next 3, 6, or 12 months, it's really freeing. I love it. I mean, when I think about the next time I'm going to have to pay my bill and how much money I saved over having AT&T and paying that bill, I just can't believe that I didn't switch sooner. As I said, I had in my other video, I had AT&T since 2004, and I mean, I could have been saving all that money all this time, especially back then when I didn't have a whole lot of money to spend. By the way, if you do choose to get Mint, I will leave my referral link in the video description. If you use my referral link, I get a credit on my next bill. As I said, the video is not sponsored. Anyone who signs up with Mint gets a referral link that they can use to give to a friend and get a credit. I'm not sure if it will work because I already got one when my sister signed up, but couldn't hurt to try. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope that it might help clear things up as far as switching your carrier. I know it's a nerve-wracking process because you might have heard in the past about switching carriers being a hassle, and maybe you've heard in the past that other carriers besides AT&T and Verizon are not as reliable and not as good to use, but hopefully you feel more at ease now, and you can start saving money just like I have, and hopefully you'll enjoy it as much as I have as well. All right, have a good one.